Well, it's a pleasure to see all of you today and to welcome you to our critical conversations in Russian Studies, sponsored by the Russian Studies Workshop at Indiana University. My name is Sarah Phillips. I'm a professor of anthropology here at Indiana University and also the director of the Russian and East European Institute, as well as the co-director of the Russian Studies Workshop. And I've been a part of the ProfessionART project for about the last year, and that's what we're here to discuss today. So I wanted to start out with just a very brief introduction of each of our panelists today. And I'll start with our colleague Anastasia Patsey, who's joining us from St. Petersburg, Russia. Anastasia is the director of the Museum of Nonconformist Art, and she's head of the St. Petersburg Art Residency. She's also a curator at the Art Center Pushkinskaya 10 or Pushkinskaya 10. She works as an independent curator with art institutions in Russia and abroad. And this is actually, ProfessionART is the third project that we have had the pleasure to work with Anastasia on. We had a project called Nonconform and a follow-up project to that called Nonconform 2, where artists and writers from the US and Russia explored what nonconformism means today. And ProfessionART is sort of also along those lines, and it's been a wonderful collaboration. I'll also introduce Alena Levina, who is a Moscow-based artist, activist, feminist, and queer painter and designer. Alena is also co-founder of the collective Inva Girl, a collective focusing on the topics of women, disability, and feminism. And it's the first gathering of its kind in Russia that is entirely dedicated to women and disabilities. And Alena, her role on this ProfessionART project was as a consultant. And we're really excited to hear about her experiences as a consultant on this project. We also have Anastasia Lyubimova joining us today. Anna is an author, illustrator, artist, and graduate of the St. Petersburg Stieglitz State Academy of Art and Design. She works primarily as an author and an illustrator, exploring themes like the boundaries of the body, physicality, and the breaking down of its perception. I'll go ahead and introduce another panelist who I don't think has been able to join us yet, but we hope that he will join the conversation. And that is Mike Kanata, who's an interdisciplinary artist, mostly working with ceramics, metal, 2D media, and found items. Mike is currently a long-term artist in residence at the Moriah Center for Clay in St. Petersburg, Florida. So we thought it was really cool that many of our participants in the ProfessionART project are located in St. Petersburg, Russia. We also have an artist located in St. Petersburg, Florida. Mike's work explores what it is like to be a hyperactive and neurodivergent individual by investigating movement and stillness. And I'd also love to give a huge shout out to a couple other artists from the ProfessionART collaboration. Joan Fabian is joining us from San Antonio, and Moriah is joining us, I think, from Boston. Yeah, great to see both of you. So first, I wanted to hand over the virtual microphone, so to speak, to Anastasia Patsey. ProfessionART was Anastasia's brainchild. She came up with this idea and just did a wonderful job putting this collaboration together. And so, Nastya, I wanted to ask you if you could talk to us about your inspiration for the ProfessionART collaboration. What were the goals of the project and the origins of the ideas?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me to speak at the panel. And I just want to say hi to everyone. I will go back to the Russian channel to Anna and Alena. So I will switch now in a second and continue in Russian, but questions are welcome in both languages. Да, спасибо. Сара сказала, что это
Sarah has already mentioned about me being the author of this idea. It did get out from the experience of our communication, and I knew that Sarah has been working and quite intensively involved in the study of disability, and there is such a group on the study of disability at her institute. That is why, by gathering this experience and sharing this experience, we had this idea of having this project for artists with disability. We already had experience working in this direction. We had certain inclusive programs at the museum, but at the same time, we felt that we need and we want not just to make our products accessible in our museum, our exhibits, our events, but we should work on the inclusive approach at a deeper level, just to see how can we integrate the work with art experts who have experience in disability in our current activity, so that it will not be a separate project, but that would be a natural part of our work. And we also need to think what inclusion is all about in the professional sense, what we as a museum can propose these artists. I have already mentioned some items that did inspire us, that is the experience of our US colleagues, their research and various events that they do. But some of the things irritated or they made us think, but it is really good for the project, because whenever we have inspiration and irritation, you have the motivation to move ahead. What made us think? We noted such a tendency that quite often professional artists that have experience of disability, they're left in the shadow of their disability. They're not expected, well, they're expected to talk about it, but in fact, it is not so. And the museums quite often invite such artists to participate in projects. But these projects are not purely art related, but they're inclusive. So over here, inclusive, sometimes it changes the character of this project. It is not just an art project, but there is a certain clause attached to it. Well, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have this project, but we wanted just to work with artists, with its participants as professional artists, and without any expectations of them referring to disability or their experience, just to give them this opportunity, but not to expect them to have this as a core project, core topic of the project. So we managed to think over this professional educational project, and we also wanted to talk about the visibility of the creativity of the professional artist with disability, and to talk how it is possible to give them equal opportunities, how to help them increase their visibility in the professional community, and just to show professional artists and their self art. And sometimes even I forgot that we're working with artists with disability, which is a really good sign of our process.
Thank you, Nastya. I think the points that you made were really important. And, you know, I think during the course of the project, all of us who were involved in ProfessionART, which brought together 5 artists from the US and 5 artists from Russia, and then Alena as a consultant and some other curatorial assistants that you had in St. Petersburg, we were constantly emphasizing that this is a project for artists, right? This is a project for professional artists. And like you said, the issue of disability was very important and it was front and center, but it wasn't the focus of the project, like as it sort of progressed over the months of the workshops that were provided and sort of the collaborations that grew from the project. So I'd love to hear from a couple of our artists about your experience. You know, we did talk about how, you know, artists with disabilities face certain barriers, but they're very different, right? They're very different depending on the sort of situational context, what medium the artist is working in, what is the context kind of locally of the art scene, and what kinds of supports do artists get. And so one thing that we were hoping that, you know, artists would explore in this project was kind of how does your identity as an artist and a person with disability kind of intersect, but also separate at times? And so I'd love to hear about your own artistic practice and your experiences as an artist in the ProfessionART project. So Anya, would you like to go first and talk a little bit about your experience in ProfessionART, and then we can open it up to some of the other participants?
Да, я могу. Ну,
Yes,
во-первых,
I can. First of all, I would like to say that that was quite an interesting experience. As an artist with disability, I came across the situation when I was applying somewhere. I could not write about my disability. I thought that people would be biased. There were some items when there were events just for disability artists. So when you mention it in the application, that creates this bias, and that struck me as my professional. And it really hit at my professionalism as an artist. But over here understood, I can talk about it or I cannot talk about it. I can just work with the topics that are interesting for me. For me, it was important to see how other artists are doing it, how they do it in the States, whether they have any specifics. There is no any specifics about it. The point is how each one of the artists is raising these topics. They may not be related to disability. You're separating yourself from these factors. Sometimes when you're accepted in exhibit as a person with disability, you have to cover it. Over here, we didn't have any focus on that. So we paid much attention to professional aspect when we're discussing some issues that had nothing to do with disability. I really liked what kind of works other artists presented at the exhibit, their vision, their feelings, how they feel in the art environment. It was quite interesting for me when at the end we had this survey that we had to fill out what we liked and what we didn't. I thought a lot, what do we need to write over here? Because I did write that we really liked, but then I understood what I lacked. I lacked this work in the Russian art scene. If the American art scene became more open to me, I understood how I could work over there. But as for the Russian art scene, it remained sort of a closed community for me. So I did write in my survey that I wanted to have more attention to the Russian art scene. And I even forgot what do I have to say in my talk. Sarah, can you ask additional question? Or
No,
is it
that's
enough what I've said?
it's perfect, Anya. That's such valuable valuable feedback, and that's what we're interested in learning about is your experience as one of the ProfessionART artists. So thank you so much for that. I think this is a good segue to ask Alena Levina if you could also weigh in here. You know, Anya was talking about how the art scene in the US, in the United States, maybe seems more accessible for artists with disabilities. I don't know if you meant this, Anya, but it sounds like maybe the focus of the ProfessionART project focused a lot on the US art scene, right? A lot of the leaders of the workshops that we invited were artists here in the United States. And so maybe a better balance, right, of having workshop leaders from Russia as well would have been a good kind of a good intervention for the project. So that's something to think about going forward. So I wonder for you, Alena, as a consultant on the ProfessionART project, what was your experience like? Did you find yourself learning a lot about the US art scene? Did you kind of learn new aspects of the art scene in Russia? And how did you bring those experiences to your work as a consultant on the project?
Сара, спасибо за вопрос.
Thank you, Sarah, for your questions. It is great to see all of you. Although I'm confused with all of these questions. The first thing that I wanted to point out, that I was surprised that in addition to the language barrier, well, except for the language barrier, there is no much difference in the notions of being an artist in the US and Russia. And we have really good, close relations when we're talking about artists with disability, because discrimination, discrimination is not distributed geographically in such narrow niche areas as art. As a consultant, I would like to state that we did a huge preparation work prior to the open call, prior to communicating with artists. And Anya Lyubimova noted it, that we did not have many experts from the Russian art scene, but we concentrated on the experience of artists from the US. And to a certain extent, it was due to my opinion that artists with disability from Russia it wouldn't be so useful for them to communicate with curators or gallery people from Russia, because the universal experience is universal. But as for the specifics of the traditional art, at the same time, it is really close to us, and it would require us to work a lot with speakers and experts in this field. Also, I would like to note that I had experience of working with Sarah and Anastasia prior to this project. As an artist, I was in the non-conform project as an artist. We also had an online residence, and I joined it quite naturally into the community of residents of various age, also from US and Russia. And as for the disability, as far as the visual disability, that was only me who had it. So this format, this combination, both online events and the ability to do something in the physical space. So at least in Russia, it is the best option to integrate artists with disability into a certain professional discourse, because unfortunately, when we're talking about artists with disability who do not conceal their disability, they say directly, yes, I have disability, but first of all, I'm an artist. But they usually link to the outside art, and not every artist would like that. And that's why they would like to belong to a completely different direction. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Alena. I think you had so many good points there. And one thing that really stood out to me was how we can think about different formats of residencies and collaborations, right? And how those might be fine-tuned to allow more artists to participate, or to really facilitate these kinds of cross-cultural, cross-border collaborations. We tried really hard to make our virtual events, as accessible as possible. But we haven't gotten it perfect. And one thing here that I'm sure Joan can talk more about is that with the interpretation of the Russian and English, sometimes what you lose is the closed captioning, right, in both languages. And so our meetings on Zoom are not fully accessible for folks with hearing impairment, for example, and we're still trying to figure out that piece of it and how to get the sort of technology to work with the accessibility that really needs to be provided. So that's one thing in thinking about format. You're right, Alena, that we did spend a lot of time and energy, right, sort of on the planning end of ProfessionART and really trying to think about how we wanted the program to be set up, what kinds of workshops we wanted to offer to the artists. So on that note, we do have two more of our ProfessionART artists on the call. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't feel like speaking up, Moriah and Joan, but it would be great to hear from you if you'd like to say a few words, maybe specifically about the workshops, about the professionalization program that was offered for the artists that you tuned into, and kind of how those were maybe different from other workshops you've been a part of, how it added to your experience being together in those workshops with artists from the US and from Sorry, I muted myself. Would love to hear about your experience there. So Joan, I see you unmuted. I hope that's a sign that you're going to.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for having the opportunity. I think it's I speak for everybody when I say that it's changed us, and it changed us in a certain amount of awareness that we developed. Also a comradeship. I know that word is double-edged, but I felt really connected and not as secretive as I would be in a general all artists, not focus on disability type of situation. And I think in that sense, it gave me a lot more confidence. And this may not have anything to do with it, but it also gave me an opportunity to share my knowledge and to challenge other artists to be better artists, not only in the US, but in Russia. And I'm very much interested in cultural exchange. I think that's something I've always been focused on. And that's something that in this time of war, we can focus on the similarities. And, you know, that wasn't even an issue, the war for me. It was, I'm connecting with you as humans, individuals, and things that we all share in common, our love of art and also our disability, our special challenges, so to speak. The guest speakers were wonderful. At first I thought, well, I know all this stuff. I went to graduate school, I've done the whole thing and done the teaching, but not necessarily. It's something that you really need to constantly be immersed in. And having these diverse array of workshops was priceless to me. And I've got to add to my arena of colleagues that I could talk to now. I thought it was very enlightening, and it kept me abreast of new issues, like using the internet and social media. Those were things that were very important, and they're new and they're challenging. On the con side, I would wish that we had found a curator that had a disability or a curator that was focusing in on artists with disabilities. I've been on this quest to try to find somebody who's doing art shows that focus on, you know, artists with disabilities, the special challenges. And that's something that has not been filled. And it was great to meet an artist with disability in one of the workshops. It would be nice to see more artists with disabilities give those workshops as well. But I really thought everything was next to perfect. So I think you guys really did a good job. I learned so much, you know, even though I thought I knew everything, but I didn't. And that's what the beauty of learning, the lifelong learning. And, you know, for what it's worth, I really, they really set me off in a good way.
That's terrific, Joan. Thank you so much for that feedback. Anastasia, Joan has homed in on an issue that I know you have been thinking about a lot in terms of curatorial practice and sort of a move towards inclusive museums and inclusive art spaces. And I know you have been thinking about possibly pursuing a new project focused specifically on sort of curatorial practice and accessibility and inclusion. Could I ask you, Nastya, to say a few words about that, since Joan has brought up this important issue?
Да, спасибо большое. Я хочу
Yes,
тоже
thank you. Well, as we have this thank you circle, I would like to use this opportunity to thank everyone, artists, all of our artists, because I feel that I did learn a lot as a curator, as an organizer, and that was very useful. Concerning new projects, integration of this experience in our curatorial practice this year, we'll be doing as a range of exhibits, about 6, 7, 8 topics, exhibits of artists with disability in one of our galleries. And the strategy, the purpose of this project, they carry on the mission of professional art, and we gathered a group of 6 curators that are based in St. Petersburg. These are professional curators. Some of them are artists. Some of them are working in institutes. Some are working independently. And we offered them to work with artists. So we have these exhibits waiting for us. And we would like it to be a normal part of our practice. Well, I cannot use the word normal, but I would say usual part of our practice. So follow us, follow any updates. I don't want to reveal the details, but they will take place in the same gallery. So we'll continue our work. Another project that will probably start this year. I cannot reveal the details, but this project will be more about the deep understanding and accessibility of inclusion in the museum, in the museums and museum collections. That's from what I can tell you right now.
Well, thank you, Anastasia, for that fun teaser. I know you have piqued our interest, and now we all want to know more. I'd love to turn, Moriah, do you feel like saying something about your experience in the ProfessionART project?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
I know Anastasia mentioned, I like that she mentioned that we weren't really focused on disability at all. We were mostly focused on like everything else. And I think that's really refreshing for a lot of artists with disabilities because that's such a small aspect of who we are. But at the same time, it was really cool to have people with things in common, even though disability is such a wide range of experiences and all just such a diversity of experiences. We still all felt like an understanding, but like between ourselves of how hard it was to like be a creative individual while having to actually feed our bodies that are like not always the easiest to deal with. So it was nice to have that somewhat similar shared experience that we could go into the deeper things, already having a different view and mindset than maybe other artists without disabilities would have. We have a certain viewpoint that we've just had to kind of feel out over how long we've been disabled or sick or whatever it was. So that kind of gave a nice basis to be able to go further and to be like, well, this is where we are, but like, what about all the professional aspects of things that we need to be kind of focusing on? It's not like the main thing we can do is not talk about our disabilities, but just go out and be who we are. And the best thing is when people can't tell, like you said, we forgot we were working with disabled artists. That's perfect. That's like what all of the disabled artists want. It's like we're just artists, just like anybody else. So I think it was really cool to just have people with similar situations. So then we can even go a step further and really expand on what all these things mean to us, like in particular. So yeah, I just also want to thank everyone in the project. It was awesome. And we got to see so much variety of different work, which is awesome. Like there were a lot of similar themes, but just such different approaches and just amazing. So it was really inspiring, and I really appreciate all of the hard work everyone did to make it happen. So yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Moriah, and thank you for being so engaged and enthusiastic all through the project. I have a question for you. Was there something in particular that really surprised you? I think this was your first kind of interaction with artists from Russia. Was there something that sort of stood out to you that you'd like to tell us about?
One thing I noticed is just seemed like a lot of the Russian artists were very like knowledgeable, like so knowledgeable about stuff. I feel like a lot of us in America are slacking about like our art history and philosophy knowledge, stuff like that. I was just really surprised at how like insightful, just how cool, like these things that I've never really thought about from that point of view, but then having somebody else expand on them when they have such personal experience with it, it was really cool. So yeah, I really liked just, even though we had that language barrier, at the same time, the things that we were sharing with each other totally translated. Like it didn't really matter that there was a language barrier, at least most of the time, I think. So yeah, I was just surprised at how amazing and intelligent all of all of our colleagues were, honestly. I don't know why that's right, but yeah, I was just really impressed by the group of people we had. It was awesome.
Yeah, there was a very high bar. There was a very high bar, that's for sure. That's for sure. Alena, I'd love to hear more from you and to hear what you're working on these days. What's going on in your artistic practice? What are you focused on? And just love to hear more about that.
Well, I was thinking whether I'm the only Alena or not. Thank you, Sarah, for this question. Just yesterday, my friends came over who were posing for my works. That's all that I do recently as an artist in the classical understanding of this notion, but mainly to the fact that I had over busy schedule in art last year and 2 years ago. I decided to take a break and to do much work in our community or women with disabilities, and I'll be working. Maybe we'll invite Anastasia Lyubimova. So we'll be working on creative media units so that we can represent women with disabilities. And then I'm cooperating with Eurasia Foundation. I'll be doing a project with my colleague from the States devoted to disability. And probably it will be about culture. That's my main area, culture and inclusion. But so far, I'm interested in doing ceramic works and paintings on the ceramics. Maybe it will be in St. Petersburg, maybe in some other museum. Then I have this dog today with me. Soon he will travel to the US. So he's waiting. So 2 animals. So probably that's it. Thank you.
That's great. I'd love to hear more about the collaboration that you mentioned that's supported by the Eurasia Foundation, Alena. That's terrific. Congratulations on that project. So the ProfessionART project culminated in a group exhibition at the Museum of Nonconformist Art in St. Petersburg. And I wanted to ask Anastasia, who curated that exhibition, to tell us about it. What challenges did you face as a curator? What was most rewarding? How was the exhibition received? And then we'll sort of segue into telling folks a little bit more about future plans for this, what has kind of become a traveling exhibition. But first, tell us about the exhibition, Anastasia.
Да, выставка стала важным таким результатом.
So the exhibit became an important result of the project. I don't want to say that it was the final point. Our project is still going on. Formally, it is over, but as we see, we continue to get together, talk, discuss. The plan was to do the exhibit. We didn't know what kind of exhibit. We didn't know who artists will be. So we had lots of unknown. And there were difficulties, technical ones. We couldn't bring the original works of our US colleagues. So we had to think of the creative solutions. And we managed to get them through. and probably they enhanced the overall impression. But for me, the work with the exhibit was just as a usual work with any group exhibit. Some artists had some needs that we had to take into account, and we did take that into account during our preparation, during the installation of the exhibit. But that was a happy experience, especially the opening, when I managed for the first time to see some of the project participants live, and our American colleagues joined us via Zoom. The exhibit was called This Moment. It was about the moment. And I remember we have these nostalgic moments when we discussed with you, Sarah, in our chat. And then at a certain moment, one of us mentioned, it is a miracle. It is almost a miracle. That maybe I thought that that's the name for our future exhibit, because it's a miracle that this project, despite all the challenges, did take place. So this exhibit was called This Moment, and it was about our artists. How do they live through this moment? How does the art help us grasp and remember what is usually evading us all the time? That was about this moment which is disappearing, memento mori, remember about death, and that life has to go on. This moment is now, we live through it, and then it will never be repeated. We will only remember it. And what else can we think about? We couldn't isolate ourselves from what is happening in the world. That is why we thought about this narrowing horizon of our planning. How can we live through this moment? That is what we have. We don't know what will happen, but that's what we have now. So that was a philosophical message of this exhibit. Well, thinking about the travel exhibits, maybe you can say something, because we had a small presentation in the library and we had huge expectations, plans. Well, the only thing I can say that it was the first exhibit in the new gallery. We opened the new gallery just with this exhibit. So it seems that it is really important that this project is opening new space, because it sets the tendency. Well, the example of the new space is a really important project. For us, it was a great honor that this exhibit opened this new gallery.
That's terrific. Thank you, Nastya. You mentioned the small exhibit here at Indiana University that we just launched last week, I think. And so for anyone who's close to Bloomington, Indiana, please know that in the Scholars Commons in the Wells Library, there is what we're calling a mini exhibit of ProfessionART. So we have biographies of all the artists and sort of visual representations of their artworks. And there is a original sculpture by Larissa Danielle, who lives here in Bloomington, Indiana, and took part in the project. And our colleague Veronica Trotter at the Wells Library curated this exhibit, and she also curated a series of books about art, gender, disability that goes along with this exhibit. So we're thinking of this mini exhibit as a teaser for what we hope will be a full-blown exhibition of the ProfessionART project with the original artworks from the 10 artists here at Indiana University next spring. So Anastasia and I and Masha Folkina, who is part of our project team, yes, crossing fingers, have been working on this, and we really hope that that will come to fruition. Speaking of ProfessionART and sort of other things that emerged from the project, we have a documentary film that was made about the project. It was made by Andrea Stanislav, who I know is on this call, and Helga Lubartovich. Andrea is our colleague here at Indiana University at the Eskenazi Museum of Art, Architecture, and Design. Helga Lubartovich is a colleague at the Museum of Nonconformist Art in St. Petersburg. So they worked together on this film. It's a 60-minute documentary that we will be screening February 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will be a hybrid screening, so we will have in-person audiences in Bloomington, Indiana, and in St. Petersburg, Russia, and then also a virtual audience. So please join us for that screening of the film, which is called I Am the Body. It's a beautiful film, and we're really looking forward to sharing it with all of you. So that's a commercial break for the film. Let's see, trying to see if any of our other artists are here. Okay, so I'd love to open it up for questions from anybody who is joining us, who's new to the ProfessionART project and would like to ask our artists about their experience, or would like to ask Anastasia about her experience coordinating and curating the project, or ask Alena Levina about her experience as a consultant. So if anyone would like to jump into the conversation, ask a question, you're more than welcome to unmute yourselves and go ahead and ask your question or contribute your thoughts, or you can drop a question in the chat. So please, anybody. Yes, Moriah, please.
Can I ask a question about the film? My question, I guess, is for Andrea. I don't know if she can answer questions. I was just wondering, like, about working on the film, like maybe what the favorite part of the film was, or what you felt stuck out to you most about going through the film, because I haven't seen it yet, but even from the small amount that we saw, it just seemed really powerful. So I was just wondering if maybe you could give some insight into some of that.
Hi, yes, can you hear me? Thank you for the question, Moriah. I think the most powerful takeaway for me was really learning about everybody's individual practices. I've worked in the past, not only as an artist, but also as a curator and an educator, and currently an educator too, and I'm currently involved with a curatorial project. But learning about, I think, the resilience for some artists, the locations that were surprising, but also just I'd say the absolute sort of power and fortitude of everyone to go forward with their practice. And as you bring, for some artists, the disability into your practice, and how you not only, it's not about working around it, it's about working in concert with it, and I think that together, the disability, the artistic talent of each individual, regardless of disability, just was quite remarkable. But in the making of the film, it was also finding the common threads between the artists, where for most, or I'd say all of the artists, thus the title with a huge homage and thank you to Anna. is about our relationship to our bodies and how our art is produced through our body experience. And even though there's, with the 10 artists involved, it was very diverse backgrounds, diverse practices. That really was the takeaway. And, and in a larger political conversation I won't get to now, but also very much in the United States with female bodies, I think that the regard for the body and how we iterate that out through our art practice, music, writing, it's a major conversation right now in many, I would say, disciplines, and the various political conversations that are happening. But for me, the most, I'd say the sort of the gift or the takeaway for me, and learning about your practices made making the film all worthwhile. And I really, really, really enjoyed that. And I look forward to, as I said during the interviews too, but I really do look forward to following all of your practices. You're remarkable and incredibly phenomenal artists, everyone. So and I'd say like the diversity of the art that was curated. So huge, I'd say, applause to Sarah and Anastasia for curating the group too. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and I want to thank you everyone that was involved in it.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Извините, я хотела бы поблагодарить всех и сказать, что мне, к сожалению,
I would like to thank you everything because I need to leave right now. I would like to thank everyone. Well, today's Zoom call brought back lots of good memories to me, and we hope to continue working with you. So have a great weekend. Thank you, Alena. So goodbye. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, Anya.
I would like to talk about the body. For me, it was a revelation that the film would be called in this way. But then I understood that the part that I have seen, many artists, as myself, they understand themselves and their body in art. But sometimes it seems to me it happens indirectly. And it would be nice to me to have this topic uniting us in a rather unusual way. And I understood. It was a sort of revelation when I was launching the testing of this exhibit, that the bigger part of people have issues with that, whether they have a disability or whether they fit certain standards or not. So that's a really acute issue for everyone. And I would like to thank for this film to have this name. But why did you come up with this name? Did you see this common topic, common trend with all artists? Probably that's the question to Andrea concerning your choice of the name of the film. I guess yes. While Andrea is joining us, I can make this comment because I worked with Helga, who worked on this film project. So that's the similar moment that I worked with Sarah. When we had this phrase in our chat, it's almost a miracle. When you see and feel that it just fits you. And in this way or the other, in the works of many of us, this topic of body is present. And I didn't know the name of the film. Well, I had only some hints, but I didn't know the exact name. But I thought it would be quite symbolic because it is about the body, that it's just more than a body, That's about the body outside the body. I don't know how Alexei will translate it, but I love the idea. In Russian, the body is used as an object. For example, they say space body. So there are too many ways to interpret that.
Thank you for that question, Anya. I don't know if Andrea is able to unmute and talk about the choice of the title for the film, but I do recall discussions about that. Some kind of attention to the body and deep engagement with the body seemed to be a fundamental thread that was in all of the artists' kind of sensibility. There's Andrea. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, Andrea.
No, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Anna. And sorry, I'm not the translation's not coming through on my end. I'm not sure, so maybe I have to figure out some of my functions. But thank you for the question and the quick translation. We were playing with Helga and I were playing with different titles that were working with the idea of the body, and through Russian and English translations, they were not, as often happens with Russian and English translations, and I'd say Japanese and English translations, they don't necessarily mean the same thing. So we had a list of different working titles that didn't translate completely, or they can come across as perhaps a question when they're not meant to, or a kind of order when they're not meant to. And Helga was also, so I would also like to credit Helga with championing Anna's title and suggesting that we maybe use this because, and this was also interesting to me, but the use of the old, well, and correct me for the right term, but I would say an older, more traditional version of the Russian language, and that it's referring to linguistically, we'll say an older Russian form of the language. And that was also intriguing to me, but also that we could further bring in the theme of the body. And I felt, and along with Helga, that Anna's title worked across for every single artist. It was really definitive of all of the artist practices. And I guess within a style of either curate, I guess I do this also with curating, but sometimes you're taking directly from one of the sources, one of the artists you're working with. Sometimes I'd say the title's right in front of you, but absolutely with a huge thank you and crediting, and we did in the film too, in the credits, Anna, because it is also the title of also one of her works. And we really, we did, as she is a media artist, focus, and really both Helga and I fell in love with the sound work, and that became kind of the opening theme then of the film. So we played around with using various other, I'd say, musical themes from other artists, and some of it's used as the outro. Fedor Lavrov, who I've worked with repeatedly, and a few of you know. So we were working with other music, I'd say other sourced music outside of the artist realm. And then we just kept on coming back to Anna's title, but also her sound piece. And it just was, it was kind of perfect. So we were like, well, this is a portrait, a group portrait of artists. That was the way I approached the film. And Helga and I both decided together, and we didn't even, it wasn't much of a discussion. We were kind of like, this feels right. So working within film video, and as many of you do too in your artwork, you first work from intuition usually, or at least intuition ends the conversation if you're deciding around one thing or another. It's like what feels right. And Anna's work, the title, and her sound really worked for the intro. We tried other things, and we kept circling back to the intro with Anna's work. And we also thought of it, I would say, from a filmmaking point of view. We worked with this idea of entering. So the action came into a kind of abstract or a cinematic narrative of entering one studio, walking in. And then at the end of the film, there's the sort of the walking out or down the sidewalk. So there's a kind of bookend of entry and exit into the artist worlds. And that was a kind of meta structure for the film too. But I want to thank you, Anna, for being so generous and for allowing us to work with your title and also your sound piece in the beginning. So it was a very poetic appropriation, and I'm very grateful for letting us appropriate your title and work in the beginning.
Я забыла по-английски сказать, но это честь для меня была. It was my... Ой, ну, короче, честь, короче.
It was my honor.
And I'd love to come visit your studio someday. You have a beautiful дома.
Я чувствовала... Спасибо. Я чувствовала себя как маленькую частицу, которая...
I felt myself as a small piece that is collecting everyone around. So for me, it was a feeling of belonging to a group of artists, and you're gathering them around you. That was an honor for me that you selected my topic as an overarching topic.
Well, and I can say too, from our perspective as organizers, Anna, it was wonderful to see how you you became a real, I don't know what the right word is, a consolidating force in the group. And I know that you developed a special relationship with some of the artists, with Joan in particular. I think you all developed a really strong friendship and working relationship, and that was just amazing to see that develop. So thank you to all of you project artists who are here with us today for your dedication and for all the wonderful energy that you put into the project. I think before we go, I selfishly would love to hear from Anna and Joan and Moriah about what you're working on now. What's going on with you now artistically? What are you working on? What are you most excited about? So, Anya, can you tell us?
Ну что, я продолжаю исследовать тему.
I continue researching the topic of the body. I'm falling through it like in a rabbit hole, deeper and deeper. Well, I don't know whether that would be a spoiler, but I will organize a separate exhibit devoted to the body, devoted to aspects of body aspects on a subconscious level, because I was studying statistics and was studying some parameters. I was taking a look how they take a look at these percentages, but then I would like to take a look at the body topic and to emerge others around me in it as well. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Great. How about you, Joan? What are you working on these days?
Most recently, I received a grant from the city of San Antonio to create a new body of work that will be in an exhibit, a solo woman show in a local gallery located also in San Antonio. So I've been also, that theme is finding a place, and I was mainly interested in the idea of my home background, my history, and the acceptance of my past, and acceptance of my disability. So it's more like an autobiographical array in abstraction of finding a place home. And I've been thinking a lot about that ever since COVID. And also I've become involved in this project, Creativity in the Time of COVID, put on by the University of Michigan under a Mellon Foundation grant. And they had picked 5 of my works to be in a traveling exhibit along with my stories about persevering in a time of difficulty. It seems like all our lives we have difficulties, and it just makes us stronger if it doesn't kill us, right? So that's what I'm doing right now, and it's keeping me quite busy.
Wow, congratulations, Joan. That's
Thank you.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Moriah, what's up for you? What you've been working on? What are you excited about?
I've been working on actually trying to finish something. I have like a ton of like fairly large scale work. You can kind of see one behind me. That's all in progress, but it's been in progress for like 2 years now. So I finally got a show at kind of an untraditional space at Lab. It's called Lab Central, and they want like 20 or 30 of my paintings. So I'm trying to finish as many as I can before I install in June. So that'll be awesome. That's me and an artist I work really closely with who also has disabilities. So yeah, I got to type up that proposal and the name and everything, but we already got it accepted and everything. So yeah, that's exciting. Finally finished some of my big paintings that take so long.
That's terrific. What great news. Congratulations. That's amazing. Well, I don't want to say goodbye. This has been such a fun conversation. Like Nastia said, I feel like this project has been full of all kinds of miracles, and we're taking a trip down memory lane in a way right now, but we're also looking forward to the future and thinking about how we can continue the work. It's so exciting to see all of you working on new projects, getting shows. It's really fantastic, and looking forward to coming together for the film. It'll be the debut of this wonderful film called I Am the Body, about the ProfessionART project by Andrea Stanislav and Helga Lubartovich. So Masha put a link in the chat for those of you who can attend the screening. Please go to register for that Zoom meeting, and we hope you'll bring as many colleagues, friends, family, bring everybody to the film screening. We want to have a really good group and a great discussion before and after the film. So Anastasia, let's give you the last word. Take us out and looking towards the future, the bright future together, and all the important work that is being done around art and disability.
Спасибо, Сара. Столько еще вопросов, которые...
Thank you, Sarah. There are so many questions that we would like to ask. But that's only a chance for us to meet in future. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone and like to stress that we had an opportunity to work together in this catastrophic year. For us, it was really important to keep this connection, not just among artists, but among people. And I was witnessing how people were exchanging messages in chat. They were sending some messages across the board. Some projects were born. That's the best result that we can imagine, that we did manage to get together people who understand each other, who are interested in each other. So I would like only to wish success to each one of us for this exchange to continue despite all the factors. I would like to thank everyone who supported our idea. So we should start getting ready for the film premiere. We should get enough popcorn.
Terrific. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining our panel today. It was wonderful to hear from all of you. Thanks to our audience members who came and supported the work, and hope that everyone can come to the film on February 28th, the film screening. Free virtual popcorn. That's right, Michael. All right. Take care, everyone.